How's it? How are you guys all doing? What's happening here? Summon champion reveal. Swim ASMR stream when? Guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's always an ASMR stream here. We've got you know, we're very set up. Got the Udyr reveal coming in hot today. And of course, I'm dressed for the occasion. We have, of course, the seasonal broadcast is starting in a few hours from now. It's going to be very hype. Can't wait to see all the Ari Kennen. Nah, I'm just playing. It's actually going to be interesting. The tournament meta right now is good. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cool things. And we're going to see Udyr today. Udyr is going to be basically trying to make sense of the reveals we got yesterday. Let's go ahead and take a look. And here we have yesterday's reveals. The Merkwolf Shamans and Ragers, the Mammoth Shaman and Rager, the Bone Square, and the Tusk Speaker. And let me tell you, Udyr, to be able to make these cards make sense, is gonna have a pretty hard time. Okay, so Udyr's coming out. Let's see what he does. It's probably Udyr. Oh wow, it's Udyr. How do we know? Udyr answers to the animal spirits of the light. Here we go. Udyr, 5 mana, 4/4. When I'm summoned or strike, create a stance swap in hand, or if you have one, reduce its cost to 0. You've damaged the enemy next to 7+ times this game, and he will level up. All right.
And hear my call.
We will show them where their spells can help.
I'll read the other cards at the end. I would get muted.
Nuns. We follow the old ways.
Grant a stance. Oh god, he actually does just. Oh no.
Fire.
Okay. Alright.
You could have fought by my side.
Oathbreaker, you should have fought beside Sejuani.
Helios 2.0.
Ironborn! Old gods, hear me!
Okay. Let's see this level up.
The spirits gather!
Still a better animation than Galio.
I see the beast inside, Shaman. Unleash it!
For Sejuani, for the Winter's Claw!
Yes, Sejuani would make a lot of sense in this deck in theory.
This is our path. Mistclaw! The gods have spoken.
All right. Okay. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and jump into the Mobalytics site where we can make sure that we have all the cards going one by one, because Burb kept telling me that we really should do these one by one swim, and I was like, okay, fine. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so Udyr again, going from the start. Udyr, a 5 mana 4/4, and again, when it's summoned to strike, create a stance swap in hand, or if you have one, reduces cost to 0, and he levels up with 7 Nexus times damaging, which doesn't have to be on unique turns, so it's probably easier than leveling up Sejuani, right? Because Sejuani actually has to be on 5 different turns, which is a lot more difficult. All right, then when he's leveled up, he's got, when I'm summoned or strike, create the swap stance in hand, or if you have one, reduce his cost to 0, and he has +1/+1 for each stance you've cast this game. And he's pretty easy to level up, right? Like way easier to level up. In fact, a lot of people are saying like Udyr is a 5 mana 4/4, so it's kind of like Kindred vibes. And honestly, not necessarily untrue, old Kindred. But on the other hand, he will actually level up in hand a decent amount. All right. And then his champion spell is Spirits Unleashed, which is grants your allies +1/+1, then deal 1 to everything, which is also main deckable. And that will deal 1 to the nexuses as well. So the interesting thing is how the stances actually play into this, right? Riot's grammar, it's with an apostrophe. Wait. We have to go back. Did they have a nexuses? Oh wait, they did. They actually just put it in apostrophe here. A grammatically incorrect apostrophe. Wait, that's hilarious. I didn't even notice that. That was so subtle to me. All right, okay, guys, listen. Riot's hilarious. You know, it's don't even worry about it. It's a small indie company. All right, let's check out these stances. So the stance swap costs 3 mana. It's pretty expensive. It grants the stance to an ally, and it looks like did I see 4 different stances? So there's Bear Stance. These are of course all just tokens. You can't main deck these. There's Bear Dance, which is +2/+2. Boar Stance. Did I say Bear Dance? Sorry. Boar Stance grants an ally 2 health and regen. Ram Stance, deal 1 to everything else. Or Wild Claw Stance, which is grant +2/+0 and overwhelm. All right, yeah, makes sense. So basically there's like offensive with Wild Claw, defensive with Boar Stance, kind of a good balance with Bear Stance, and whatever the hell Ram Stance is. Yeah, no, it's actually pretty cool versatility. And then in terms of the final support cards, we've got Kiara Allseer, a 6 mana 5/5. When I'm summoned, create a stance swap in hand. It costs 0 this round. So basically, it's a 6 mana card. And just in terms of like using the stance on itself, you can make it a 6 mana 7/5 overwhelm, right? You can make it a 6 mana 5/7 regen. You can make it a 6 mana 7/7, or you can make it a 6 mana 5/5 deal 1 to everything else, including the nexus, which is actually useful. There will be a lot of situations where that 1 nexus reach will actually matter. Overall, some people are saying like better Alpha Wild Claw, and that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind, right? When you look at Kiara Allseer, the fact that, you know, it gives you the stance swap, it could be like an Alpha Wild Claw. If you want, it'll be a 7/5 instead of a 7/6. Alpha Wild Claw has been very competitive in the past, very competitive. For those of you guys who have joined the game fairly recently, might be a little bit surprising how good that card has been for how long. But Kiara Allseer is interesting. I at the end of the day, for this kind of like stance deck, it would make sense. But it's probably a little bit, you know, awkward outside of that. Vulpine Wanderer, when I'm summoned to create a stance swap in hand. So this is the stance swap that this create is going to be 3 mana, which is pretty expensive, but it's a 2 mana 2/2 that just gives you free value. Really brings to mind the kind of like darkness generating cards. Just like a cheap body that just gives you a fairly expensive card in your hands, but it's still a card, right? And it's a card that has synergy with your deck. So pretty interesting. And then we've got Shaman's Call. Create 2 fleeting 0 cost stance swaps in hand, and this one is 6 mana, which makes sense because the 2 stance swaps it's going to give you have to use that turn, but can do a lot. And this is actually really versatile, and of course the stance swaps are slow, right? You can't like do anything truly wacky with these at speed. It would take 2 different actions for this, but this brings a lot of possibilities. You can give something +4/+4. You can do 2 damage to the nexus. You can do, I mean, the regen one is going to be like very situationally useful. Yeah, you can combine this with like a Lux or a Jace deck potentially, because it's, you know, 6 mana spell, and it has additional like spell synergy in terms of your hand as well if you're just looking for spell triggers. Yeah, Jace has like a pretty good redouble up on this. And Lee Sin, I see a lot of you guys are saying Lee Sin now has a bit of an in with Freljord because we have good access to Overwhelm and spell triggers. I mean, Shaman's Call actually has a lot of spell triggers. Now, it's been the case for a while that like Lee Sin has felt fairly locked into Targon, but I will say Freljord does have some grabs to Lee Sin. We've actually seen, I think like both Glop and I have messed around with Freljord Lee Sin in the past pretty briefly and a while ago, but unironically, you know, some of the tools that Freljord has, River Shaper is notoriously like really good with some of the Freljord spells like Troll Chant, like Elixir of Iron. We've got, of course, Entreat, which is a really important way of getting Lee Sin every game. If there was a way to like turbo level him and enable Overwhelm, you could actually mess around with Freljord Lee Sin. And Shaman's Call is 3 spell triggers, right? Which is actually not bad. Wrath of the Freljord is our last card here. The big 8-mana 8/8 boar with Overwhelm. Enemies with 3 or less power can't block. So it basically gives your entire board super fearsome, sort of. Call him Big Pig. Galio counters. Yeah. They literally just straight up preemptively print like a Galio hard counter. Enemies with 3 or less power can't block. This one is actually kind of interesting. Like, honestly, this card ain't bad. A turn 8 play is, you know, usually a little awkward and slow, but Freljord has a lot of reasons to have some random turn 8 plays. This card will end games. Like, as an 8/8 Overwhelm, and the fact that it stops a lot of the board from being able to attack, this card is like scary. Yeah, Faron, it's very comparable to Captain Faron, which of course we know has been very competitive in the past. This card is just a really solid way of ending games. I think the problem with a lot of the expensive cards we've seen in the past that haven't been good, a lot of the 7, 8, 9 mana units that have been quote unquote unplayable, and you guys might be getting those vibes. The problem with those cards is that they don't end games. You look at the new cards, you look at Wrath of the Freljord, and I mean even Gorlith the Unscalable, which probably isn't as good but a lot funnier, but even Gorlith ends games, right? Like a lot of the expensive followers we know to be bad are bad because they can't end the game on the turn you play them. This thing, Wrath of the Freljord, if you slam this with any amount of board at all, this will actually end the game a decent amount of the time. Like the 8/8 Overwhelm body is solid enough, and your opponent will just be pushed to additional damage with this effect. Sometimes like a crazy amount of additional damage. Better than Tryndamere? This is far better than Tryndamere. Like, not even close. Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, that's today's reveals. This is interesting. There's a lot of ways we can mess around with these concepts. Like, now that we have Udyr, we don't know exactly how this might fit into like a Gnar. I was saying yesterday, like, it seems like we were going to get some kind of transform archetype with Gnar. And that Udyr would have some kind of transform. It looks like Udyr doesn't do anything with transforming. He just has these like stance swaps, right? So we have to go back and evaluate Udyr, you know? And of course, we haven't seen all the cards yet, but is Udyr looking hot or not? Well, he's fairly easy to level up. Leveling in hand is pretty nice. I mean... Stances are really expensive at 3 mana. I think that's like the biggest problem when I'm seeing this. It feels like the versatility of the stances are really good, but 3 mana every time you want to cast one is just kind of crazy, right? Like, he's not your main strat. He's got some anti-aggro, yeah. I mean, the fact that you have the flexibility, like the flexibility of these stances is crazy. Like, Ram stance can sometimes be used to like sweep aggro, which is really nice. He's kind of like, yeah, it's sort of like a Felios, I guess you could say. I don't know, the fact that the stances do completely different things to what the weapons do does matter quite a bit, right? Like, one of them is an Overwhelm +2, that's like the closest comparison we have, but the weapons are a lot more versatile than the stances themselves. Lifesteal is probably going to be better than deal 1 to everything else if you're trying to counter aggro. The sheer proactive solid value of Crescendum, pulling a 2 health unit from your deck, or a 2 cost unit from your deck, is really important. So Udyr feels like a little bit that the stances might end up being too expensive, unless I'm missing something. Because, like, I mean, the base body's good, you know. Udyr's got the body, but in terms of actually getting use out of, you know, this archetype, The stances do feel a little pricey. Kiara Allseer, of course, might actually end up being very excuse me, can't shake this cough, very good. I mean, again, it is basically a better alpha Wild's Claw, which is really nice. It can reduce them to 0 as well. Yeah, but only if he's like attacking multiple times, right? Like, guys, I've read the card. But when you're using this stance deck, you're not going to be able to play them at 0 mana every single time, right? Like, and he's gonna have to have a lot of like multiple strikes to be able to reliably make these 0 cost, right? Like, you look at something like Zoe, for example. How often are you playing Zoe's super cool star charts at 0 mana? You do sometimes, but it's not that common. The 2 cost. Yeah, no, the Vulpine Wanderer makes 1 in hand, and you get like a 0 cost 1 off of the initial Udyr, and you jam a stance down. So he's got a pretty solid stat line himself. You know, he's got a 5/5/5. There's definitely ways to use these. Regen is a little bit limited, and there's not a lot of decks that are going to reliably want to use +2/+2, but the Overwhelm as an option, and the Wild Claw stance and the Ram stance are really valuable to have as options, right? So I don't know like what kind of deck he'd fit in. I think the biggest bet for Udyr moving forward is people would return to kind of like an old school mono Freljord, almost like vibey deck. Not even necessarily with Avaros and Outriders, but at the very least deep into Freljord. Honestly, not necessarily not with Avaros and Outriders. I wouldn't mind pulling I wouldn't mind pulling Udyr off of Outriders. Outriders is +3/+3 in Overwhelm. That sounds hot. You could run like Lux Udyr. I think you can run these support cards with a lot of different things, right? Yeah, no, Lux would be able to get a lot of spell generation off of this. I think that for the most part, if you're gonna run like Lux or Jace synergy, you could definitely dip into Freljord for some of these new cards. Like Shaman's Call is pretty good. Wrath of the Freljord is a good finisher for not those kinds of decks, but other decks that are running like a lot of the Freljord ramp style decks, or like, for example, like Targon's Peak kind of things might be able to use Wrath of the Freljord, which is cool. Is it ever Udyr Lee Sin? People will try it. It's definitely not. It's something that's worth trying, but it would be a really hard time for it to overtake Targon Lee Sin with just the cards that we see, right? Swain and Udyr is the sauce. Honestly, there are a lot of different ways to build this concept. The fact that, you know, you can compare his level up to Sejuani, but because Sejuani has to trigger every turn, she ends up being very limited in very specific kinds of decks, right? That are built around being able to level her up, because she's not great unless you level her up. Udyr's is a lot simpler. Just damaging the enemy next to 7 times is so easy by comparison. So yeah, no, like decks like you could run him in a wider variety of decks, right? Like you can just like throw him places and see how it goes. It still feels like his price point's going to be a little bit too high, and honestly I don't know how the support followers are going to fit in with him, but he's very versatile. What do you guys think? Worth putting him in a Demacia strike deck? Yeah, I mean, you are definitely going to get some value out of these strikes. Like you can basically just throw him anywhere. I'm just not sure where he would make the most sense at the start. And while he's got a good initial value, he just has a hard time actually, I feel like, fitting into a constructed level deck, right? Unless I'm missing something. The best part of Udyr is that he gives us new ways to grant Overwhelm. Yeah, for like Lease Index, etc. Oops. Yeah, but for the most part, this is kind of like, this is my initial impression with the Udyr reveal. I'm actually curious how Gnar is going to fit onto it. I swear to God, I mean, there has to be some kind of transform archetype. There's no possible way they wouldn't have done this, right? Like we got these transform cards, you know, yesterday. There's gonna have to be something with Gnar. We know Gnar is gonna fit into an archetype. Maybe it's too much copium at this point, but of course we know that Gnar is the 4th and last champion to be revealed. So who knows how these are going to fit into that, if at all. Oh yeah, also I forgot to mention this card we got yesterday, Bone Scar. This is like the true MVP of Freljord. This card is just good. You can chuck this anywhere. I love this card. But yeah, All right, guys, that's today's impressions. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, because otherwise that comment would just be weird, because it's only on YouTube. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the, well, I guess Nar reveals not, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for the cards that we're gonna have before Nar, which are gonna be, and then the day after that I'll see you guys that tomorrow for Nar. All right, clean outro, ship it.